What is up, my guys? Welcome back to the podcast. This is Operation Smarty Pants, where our mission is to acquire knowledge and expand our minds. I am your host, Special Agent Ray, and today we are going to learn about the surprisingly interesting and complex world of minimalism. Thank you guys so much for tuning in today. Stick around to the end of the episode for some shout outs from last week's episode. Today, we are going to jump right into it and talk about minimalism. I watched a documentary called Minimalism, a documentary about the important things. And this documentary follows two men who have called themselves the Minimalists. A man named Ryan Nicodemus and a man named Joshua Fields Milburn. And in this documentary, we follow them on a cross-country tour around the US to promote both minimalism and their books, which at the time, they've written several books. I believe at the time they were promoting Minimalism, Live a Meaningful Life, and Everything That Remains. Those were 2011 and 2014 respectively. They've also published some essays along the way. And they had a recent book in 2021 called Love People, Use Things, because the opposite never works. So Ryan and Joshua packed up their suitcases, and we find out that they are very small suitcases because as minimalists, they are not bringing a ton of stuff with them on their journey. And we follow them throughout the US. They give some talks, they do some book signings. They're trying to push this message of minimalism out to the general public. Now, what is minimalism? Let's make sure that we are all on the same page going into the rest of this podcast so we know what we're talking about. Okay, so minimalism in terms of lifestyle is defined as simplifying one's life by reducing material possessions and distractions, prioritizing experiences and meaningful relationships over accumulating goods or things or stuff. Okay, so that's the definition. Now, what does this mean? Why are we talking about this today? I consider myself a minimalist. I'm maybe not a practicing minimalist right now. I recently bought some stuff, but I recently got rid of a bunch of stuff. So, it all kind of balances out. I discovered minimalism back in college when I was living a very busy life. I was going to classes every day. I had extracurriculars. I was waking up at 5:30 a.m. I was going to bed after midnight. I was very busy. My life was very cluttered with things to do, things to get, materials and supplies. And I remember finding minimalism, and I was obsessed with watching videos on YouTube of people giving tours of their minimalist homes and showing their clean white countertops and clean white walls with maybe some simple artwork, maybe a couple of plants here and there, but there was no clutter, there was no stuff just sitting out and about. I would watch people give wardrobe tours of their small capsule wardrobes. They only had 30 items in their closet. Everything was black or white or some sort of neutral so that you could pair a top with a bottom and they would always match no matter what. And this sort of simplified their day. Getting ready in the morning took a lot less time, a lot less effort. And that appealed to college me because my life was so complicated that finding this ideology of simplicity was really comforting to me. And I remember taking time to get rid of stuff, realizing that a lot of the stuff that I had with me in my dorms and in my house at the time really was not serving any sort of purpose. and was just sitting there, and I kept it because it was just there. It had always been there, so why would I get rid of it? And minimalism helped me sort of take a critical eye to my possessions and my belongings, and helped me figure out what I actually needed and what I actually used and what could be gotten rid of. And I carried that with me throughout the, into my, more adult life. Right now, the place where I'm living, I live with my boyfriend. We have stuff. I'm not as concerned with the aesthetics of it. But we do, like in our bedroom is very clean, very bare. We don't have a ton of stuff. The only thing that's up on the walls in our bedroom is a piece of handmade wooden art of the Hokusai Great Wave from Japanese art history that we bought together last year at a Renaissance fair. So that is, that's very special to us. It holds a special place in our hearts. It has meaning to us in our relationship. That's the only thing we have up on the walls in our bedroom. Everything else is bare. And to be honest with you guys, I really like that. I really like the simplicity. It's easy on the eyes. I'm in my bedroom to rest and relax. I don't want to be looking at a bunch of stuff. I don't want to be thinking about a bunch of stuff. I want my mind to be blank. I want my walls to be blank. It works for us. Maybe it doesn't work for you. Maybe you want to have a ton of cool stuff up in your bedroom. That's fine. We're not making any moral judgments here in this podcast. We're just looking at the philosophy of minimalism and what it means to Josh and Ryan, what it means to us, how we can maybe take some of these concepts and apply them to our lives without, diving full force into it. We're more trying to find something new that we can learn, maybe some small change that we can make, whether that is physically with our stuff or whether that's maybe emotionally in our minds. We're just kind of looking at the world in a different way. So let's jump into the lives of Joshua Fields Milburn and Ryan Nicodemus, the Minimalists. So let's jump into the lives of Josh and Ryan. From the outside, they have a perfect, quote unquote, life. They have successful careers. They are both making six figures. They have the house, they have the family, they have all the coolest, fanciest stuff, the best cars, yada, yada. And they both found that they were not actually happy. These lives they were living, these careers, these things were not fulfilling them on the inside. They found that they were kind of living these like automatic lives, just going day to day, next thing to next thing, keeping up with the Joneses, always on the hunt for the next possession, the next purchase that was going to make them happier. And what they found is that they were trying to search for this happiness, and they could not achieve it. They did not find it. So Josh kind of led the way and brought Ryan into minimalism, with the idea that everything in their life needs to serve a purpose or bring some sort of joy or add some sort of justifiable value. They wanted to step away from what they felt like they should be doing or what they felt like the expectations that were placed on them, and they wanted to live more intentional lives. So now let's talk about this should for a second. There's this illusion that they were living in, that a lot of us, I think, are living in, that we think that our lives need to look a certain way, or we need to be taking some specific steps in our lives to find success and find happiness, and that this has kind of been written out for us. These expectations have been placed on us, maybe by society at large, maybe by our family or our parents. Maybe they are self-imposed expectations. And this kind of is perpetuated online, especially we're living in a very online world now, through social media, where you see people living what looks like perfect lives, and you think, oh, that's what I want, that's making them happy, I want that too. This is promoted and perpetuated through advertising, and the people behind the advertising and behind the media who want to make money off of you buying the next best thing because you think that's what you should be doing. So this was the state that these two men, Josh and Ryan, were living in, and they wanted to get away from that. They wanted to live intentional lives. They wanted to live lives of purpose. They wanted to live lives that were full of joy. They realized that the American dream has sort of been warped over the years. It used to mean America was a land of opportunity to be able to build yourself up from nothing, come as you are, and you can find success here. It has been warped and changed into America is a place where you can get a job so that you can buy all these things, so that you can be happy in the way that everyone else is happy. It has switched from a land of opportunity to a land of materialism. And I think that no matter who you are listening to this, you can agree with me in some sense of the word that we are living in a very materialistic society. It is so easy to get online and purchase anything you want, anything you could ever imagine. It's there for you with just a couple of clicks of a button. You see people on social media making money by pushing items, pushing things, being sponsored by brands trying to sell you stuff to make money. And in the late 1900s, stuff became a lot cheaper and a lot more readily available. And that's made it really easy for this culture of material things to grow and grow into what it is now today. And in this documentary, we talked to a man named Sam Harris. He was a neuroscientist. He stated that, over time, studies have found that when you purchase something new, yes, you have a fleeting bit of happiness about that. You get that dopamine rush. There's that excitement of, oh, I've always wanted this thing. Now it's here. Now I have it. Sort of almost a sense of achievement, maybe. A lot of satisfaction, definitely. But with that thing, there's this physical object you can hold in your hands. That satisfaction and that gratification decreases over time. You have diminishing returns on the happiness that an item brings you, especially if a new version of it comes out. So think about cars, think about phones, think about game consoles, even fashion. We see things in fashion as that's so last season. It's old. It's not worth as much. It's not as valuable. Oh, that iPhone is 5 years old. The new one has so many more bells and whistles and it can do so many cool things. This old one that I have, now is not making me happy because I know that there's this new fancy shiny thing out there that could be making me happy instead. And so you're always sort of chasing, you're always on the hunt for the next best thing because the things that you currently have are going to bring you less satisfaction over time. So you're looking for that satisfaction in another material possession. And because we are basing our happiness and our sense of satisfaction on these material possessions, then we start to attach to them. We attach our happiness to these things. We attach our identity to some degree to these objects, kind of in the same way that you would attach to people. Think about the iPad kids. I know them. I'm sure you know them. I'm sure you've seen videos on them. These kids, these toddlers that are glued to the screens, watching videos, playing games. They become dependent on these things, and if you try and take them away or tell them, no, you can't have this, then they freak out. They throw tantrums. They almost can't function without having this screen in their hand. It becomes a part of them. And again, this thing is an object. And we could talk so much about how these iPads and all of this screen and the social media and having access to a phone at such a young age is really detrimentally affecting children's development and growth. That's a whole other subject that we don't need to get into today. But again, that's just one example of how we have an unhealthy attachment to objects. They showed videos in this documentary. They showed videos, this is so crazy, of Black Friday footage of people in stores rushing right when the stores open, rushing in, grabbing as much as they can, grabbing whatever they can to purchase because why? Because it's there, because they can, because it's cheap. I don't know. There was a video of a mom and a child who, I think they both picked up the same thing. It was just like a little box. This girl was holding this box in her hand. She's maybe 5 or 6 years old. Another woman, a complete stranger, comes up to her and grabs it out of her hand, literally takes it from this child. And the mom, understandably upset, goes to the woman and tries to get it back, and they start fighting. They start fighting over this thing. I don't even know what the thing was. I don't think they even know what the thing was. I don't think they cared what the thing was, but they wanted that satisfaction, that gratification of, I'm going to get this thing for a cheaper price on this day. It's wild. I honestly don't even really understand it, because I've never really been that type of person that's going to stand out there and wait in line for stores to open on Black Friday. But again, this is the kind of materialistic culture that has grown and been perpetuated over the years to now people buy stuff because they think they're supposed to buy stuff. They're not really thinking about why they're buying this stuff. And then it's sitting in your house and it's collecting dust and you're creating clutter and that honestly that's going to drain you. That's going to drain your energy. That's going to make you tired in ways that you maybe aren't even thinking about or maybe won't even notice. For example, I guess this is more personal experience. I've really found that having clutter in my home makes me tired. Because it's stuff, it's like sensory input. You're looking at these things, your brain has to look and process it, and that takes time and that takes energy. Like if I get home after a long day of work and, I maybe didn't do the dishes from that morning, or maybe I didn't do dishes from the night before, and I was like, oh, I'm too tired, I'll just leave it, I'll do it tomorrow. I rush off in the morning, I come home, the sink is full of dishes, I'm tired, I'm like, ugh, I'm gonna have to spend the energy to do those dishes tonight. I really don't want to. I'm tired. If I take a lot of time in the morning to try on like 5 different outfits and I don't know what I want to wear and I don't have time to put them all back, so I throw them in a pile at the foot of my bed. I go off to work, I come home at the end of the day, I see that pile of clothes, I'm tired, I have to put all of those away. That's just now extra work because of this extra stuff, because I haven't simplified my life enough that I can just put something on in the morning, be happy with it, and go. Now, of course, there's a balance. There's a line that we have to walk. You don't want to be sitting in a house full of clutter, full of things that you don't use, things that are just collecting dust and have no meaning for you. You also don't want to live in a completely bare bones house with nothing that looks pretty, with nothing that makes you happy when you look at it. There's a balance. So Josh, in this documentary, Josh talks about that everything that he owns either serves a purpose, brings him some sort of joy, or adds some sort of justifiable value. So let's talk about the two sides of that for a second. There is purpose and value, and there is joy. And those things don't necessarily have to overlap. It's great if they do, but they don't have to. So when we talk about purpose and value, that's like a couch to sit on. Some minimalists don't even have couches to sit on because it doesn't serve a purpose for them. Some people, you want to come home, you want a nice comfy couch to sit on to relax. That's fine, that adds purpose. Think about like a toaster. Maybe you have a toaster because it's a kitchen staple. You're supposed to have a toaster. Maybe you don't make a lot of toast. Maybe once a week you make yourself toast, and the other 99% of that week your toaster is just sitting there doing nothing, collecting dust. Unless you love that toaster, unless it's your favorite toaster and it was a family heirloom passed down, whatever. If it's just a toaster and you're toasting your toast once a week, then it's not really adding a ton of value. You might be better off toasting that bread on a pan once a week, a pan that you can clean and put away, a pan that you can use for other purposes, and getting rid of your toaster and having a cleaner, clearer space on your counter, one less thing you have to manage and take care of and clean at the end of the day. But if you're someone who absolutely loves toast, like I love toast, I love buttered toast, I'll sprinkle a little bit of salt on it. I'll even put garlic on it to make sort of like a garlic bread. It's really spicy, but it's really good. I love toast. I make toast at least once a day, if not every other day. So for me, a toaster adds value. Now, our toaster isn't the prettiest thing. It doesn't necessarily make me happy, but it serves a purpose in my life. So yes, it deserves to be there. So this is what we talk about when we talk about minimalism. We're not just getting rid of stuff for the sake of getting rid of stuff, but we want the things that are actually in our lives to hold value for us or to bring us joy. And this is a second thing, and this was kind of brought up in the documentary. Someone asked, or he was giving an example, Ryan was giving an example of someone who asked him, oh, well, what if I love collecting like old clocks? I was supposed to just get rid of collecting my clocks to be a minimalist and to have less stuff around? No, that brings you joy, right? If you have something, if you are a collector of something and collecting those things brings you joy and you have memories associated with those things and it makes you happy when you look at them and you feel maybe a sense of pride about them, then that is fine. That is bringing you joy. That is serving some sort of purpose in your life to make you happy. So this is about asking ourselves, looking at the things around us, look at the things sitting around you right now, especially if you're in your home, and ask yourself, does this thing serve a purpose? Does it bring me joy? Does it add value to my life? If you can say yes to any one of those things, great, keep it. If you are saying no, if it doesn't bring you purpose, if it doesn't add value, if it doesn't make you happy, then maybe you don't need it. Maybe you don't need it. Maybe you can get rid of it. An interesting tidbit that came from this podcast, the documentary, this is a podcast, we watched a documentary. An interesting tidbit that came from this is that they did a study on people living in their house, and they wanted to see how much of the house actually gets used on a day-to-day basis, just by studying where those people spend time, looking at sort of like an infrared heat map of it. And what they found is that only about 40% of the home was being used. 40%, that is less than half of the space in your house that is actually being used, and the rest of that space is going to waste. Now, I don't have a solution to that necessarily. I just wanted to bring it up just as a sort of just something to think about. Okay, we are going to talk about a couple more things. I want to talk about minimalism in terms of fashion and clothing. I want to look at an extreme case of minimalism in the life of a man named Colin Wright. And then we're going to look at some of the more mental and emotional effects of minimalism and what you can do once you have gotten rid of all your stuff, once you have decluttered your heart and your mind and your home and your things, what you can then replace that with. Because it's not just about getting rid of things, like we've been saying, it's not about getting rid of things just for the sake of getting rid of things. There is a specific purpose to it, and it should, at the end of the day, be making you happier and healthier. So we are going to look at how to do that as well. But first, let's talk about the fashion aspect of it. So I enjoy fashion. I consider myself to be fashionable. I like putting outfits together. I actually just bought or I didn't buy, I received a brand new jewelry box, and I bought myself a watch box because I have, over the past maybe year or so, accumulated more jewelry than I had the space for in my old storage solution. So I needed to get something new. Now, on the surface, that doesn't sound super minimalist, like, oh, I'm getting more jewelry, so I'm getting a bigger box to hold stuff for it. Like, isn't that the opposite of decluttering? But the thing is that this new jewelry, a lot of it is gifts. A lot of it are gifts that were given to me by my boyfriend, by my family. And so receiving these as gifts and seeing what they picked out for me and what they thought I would like, and knowing that these are symbols of their care and love for me, then now this jewelry holds a lot of value and it brings me a lot of joy. And every time I'm putting together an outfit and I'm selecting which watch I want to put on and which necklace and which rings I'm wearing, I think about the people who gave me those things. And so it's stoking that emotional connection that I have with them, and it's making me feel a little bit closer to them every single day. So I see that as minimalist, because it's not something, I'm not like buying this excess stuff for myself. I'm not buying jewelry just because I like it and I think it would look cool and I think I need something new. It's because I'm receiving these things, these gifts that hold a lot of personal value to me. So I try and do that with the rest of my fashion as well. I try to buy things that I feel like I'm going to be able to wear for a longer amount of time. And they're not necessarily like these perfect little capsule pieces that you might see on YouTube or on Instagram of people who are only dressing in monochromatic colors or blacks or whites or neutrals. Yes, that is minimalist. And I mean, of course, that can be authentic if that is the kind of style that, you as a person like and prefer. I like a little more color. I do wear a lot of black, but I like to throw some color in there as well. And as long as I am, wearing everything that's actually in my closet, and as long as it's not just sitting there and going to waste and is actually being used and actually being worn, and I'm not buying something new, every single week, every single month, then I personally don't see any issue with that. The issue comes when you are buying new clothes simply because you want to stay quote unquote on trend, or because you saw it in an ad online and you kind of didn't really think about or consider the purchase. You just went and bought it the next day or even that minute just because you're like, oh, that's cool, I want that. Let me get that immediate dopamine rush of click, making a purchase and receiving it. And then you wear it for, a couple of weeks, and then the diminishing returns come in and it doesn't hold as much value for you anymore. And then it's just sitting in your closet and collecting dust, and the cycle goes on, yada, yada. That's not good. That's not minimalist. That is giving in to consumer culture and fast fashion, which is becoming a large problem, where these brands are very quickly and very cheaply making clothes that are a very low quality that immediately go out of trend. The next week, the next month, there's always going to be something new. And it's an unstable process, and it's unsustainable for us, the people who would be buying those clothes. I don't know if you guys know this, but there are brands, higher end brands and lower end brands, that will, if they don't sell clothing, they will actually like slash and destroy and take a knife to these garments to prevent them from being sold again, so that they can just come out with something new and make money off of that new thing. And to me, I don't know about you, but to me, that is the very definition of excess and waste, creating something, it's not sold, it's not bought, so you destroy it. So it never had any value to anybody ever. That I don't understand why people think that's a good idea. It goes back to the materialism, to this capital society that we live in where it's all about making money. To me, that doesn't work. To me, buying something just to stay on trend, to look good on social media, you're trying to satisfy a hunger that cannot actually be filled or satiated. You are trying to achieve this feeling, this wholeness or contentment that was promised to you by somebody else, by the influencer, by the advertising, by the edited picture that they're posting on their website, what have you. Ultimately, what you put on your body, the clothes that you put on your body, isn't actually going to make you happy. That's not actually going to make you feel fulfilled. There was a woman that we talked to in this documentary. Her name was Courtney Carver. She discovered and implemented what is called Project 333. Basically, you whittle your wardrobe down to 33 items and you use those items for 3 months. And you see what happens. You see if that changes anything. You see how your life changes. You see if you feel like you're missing out on something, or if you feel like, that's not enough for you in terms of fashion, in terms of the clothes that you wear, the shoes that you wear, whatnot. She actually found that wearing 33 items only for 3 months was completely doable. It was completely doable. You're definitely going to be doing laundry pretty regularly. That's not necessarily a bad thing. And you know what she also found? No one noticed. No one else noticed. No one else cared that she was wearing the same clothes over and over. No one else cared if she repeated outfits. No one said, "Didn't you wear that last week?" People don't care. People aren't thinking about you. They're thinking about themselves. They're thinking about their own lives. People don't care what you wear. And this goes back to the fast fashion where they're saying, oh, you need a new thing every single week. You need to be on trend. You need to keep up with all these new things that all these other people are wearing. But those other people don't care what you're wearing. They care more about what they're wearing. You care about what you're wearing. But you're not looking at what other people are wearing, right? Unless you are looking at them through the lens of jealousy or envy, or I want to be like them. And again, we talked about this last week, that's looking to something external for validation, not something internal. Internally, as long as you are wearing clothes that fit and feel good and are high quality and, at least look nice and presentable, it doesn't really have to go much further than that to, on a basic day-to-day survival level. Of course, if you enjoy fashion and you want to put cool outfits together, then yeah. But then at that point, it brings you joy and it brings you value, right? You're not doing it because someone else says you have to look like this. You're doing it because this is authentic to you. I want to be fashionable because it brings me joy. Not I want to be fashionable because someone else says I should be fashionable. So a lot of this stuff really comes back to the reasons why you are doing things. And whether your reasoning is authentic and internal, or whether your reasoning is inauthentic and external. Let's do a quick little case study. Let's look at the life of a man named Colin Wright. Now, Colin was interviewed in this documentary, and he has been, at the time this was filmed, he had been traveling the world for about 4 years. Non-stop traveling the world for about 4 years. He was technically homeless. He didn't have a permanent space that he could go home and settle down. He didn't have a permanent space that was filled with all of his stuff. He carried his stuff with him on his back. He had 2 duffel bags. He had 51 things total. 51. Those were all of his possessions in the world. And he could put them in 2 bags, carry them on his shoulders, and go from city to city, country to country, and completely travel the world. I believe he worked remotely. So, he has his laptop, he can work from anywhere. And without without a rent payment or a mortgage payment, without a car payment and car insurance, without utilities bills, without all the stuff that we pay for every single day that ties us down to one place in particular, he has the freedom to go out into the world and go wherever he wants and do whatever he wants and live this I'm sure crazy, wonderful, wholly unique life where basically the whole world is his home and he is free to traverse it as he sees fit. Now, of course, this is not going to work for everybody. He is a single man, so he does not have a partner. He does not have a family that he has to take care of or that he is beholden to. Again, he is able to work remotely, so he can still make money to fund this traveling lifestyle. But again, he is not paying for the stuff in his life. All the stuff he has, he's already bought. He can carry it with him. There isn't anything extra that is tying him down. And I think that a lot of us definitely do feel tied down to where we are because of our homes, because of our stuff, because of our jobs, that we need to pay for our homes and for our stuff. And, if you've got a good place, if you can afford it, if you're in a job that you enjoy, then of course there's no problem with that. I'm sure you're satisfied. I'm sure you're content. But, and this is true for me, maybe it's true for you, I feel like there's a part of me that, yes, while I am very happy with my life, that does long to be able to travel the world like that. There is a very alluring sense of and source of freedom in that. Complete and utter freedom that I don't have because I live in one place and all my stuff is here and I have to go to the office and work and I have to, put in for time off if I want to go travel somewhere. So it's very different and it works for Colin. I don't know if he's still doing this. I hope it's still working for him. But he compared himself to a hermit crab or a turtle, someone who carries their home with them on their back and who is free to wander. And this is, of course, the kind of the most extreme case of minimalism that I personally have ever seen, where you, again, have nothing tying you down. You have less than 100 possessions to your name. And you can go and you can travel and you can do as you like. Now that I'm thinking about it, yes, there is definitely an appeal to this, but you also are missing some of the more positive things, the more positive parts of being tied down somewhere. Like I mentioned, he doesn't have a wife, he doesn't have a partner, he doesn't have a family. I'm sure he has friends, but he can't, go hang out with those friends every single weekend if next weekend he's going to be in another country, So you're missing, in a life like that, you're missing connections. And those connections do kind of tie you down and hold you down, but in a positive way. And this is sort of the last thing that I want to touch on in this podcast, is that it is good to have things in your life that hold you down as long as they are holding you down in a positive way. Josh talked about his mother. In December of 2008, he was at his job, he was working, he was in a very important meeting. He got a call from his mom and he missed the call. His work was too important. His corporate life, his work was too important. He missed the call. I don't think he called her back that night. I think it was like that weekend or something like that he finally was able to talk to her, and he found out. that she was calling him to tell him that she had stage 4 lung cancer and that she did not have very long to live. And of course, for Josh, this is devastating. I mean, this is his mother. He had sort of a tumultuous relationship with her, but that doesn't matter. This is your mother, this is your family, this is your flesh and blood. And he told her that he was sorry, that was the most prevailing emotion, that he was sorry and that he wished that he had spent more time with her. He wished that he had spent more time with his mother. Over the career, over the money, over the stuff, he wanted to be with his family. He wanted that personal, emotional connection. Unfortunately, he realized a little too late that was what was important. That's what's important to him. Not the stuff, not the money, not the career, family, connection, someone, your own flesh and blood to be there with and to be there for you, and someone that you can be there for. Because that is what is fulfilling. That is what is truly fulfilling, is yes, living a good life, but then being able to share that life with people around you that you love and that you like to spend time with and who mean something to you. When you get rid of all the stuff, it leaves a lot of empty space, and you do need to fill it, but you don't want to fill it with more stuff. You want to fill it with stuff that actually matters. And what actually matters is family, is friends, is connections with the people in the world around you. You can have all the success in the world, that's not going to make you happy. You can have all the money in the world, that's not going to make you happy. And this is an old adage, it gets repeated. Money doesn't buy you happiness, success doesn't buy you happiness, but it's true. It's so true, and we lose sight of that very quickly and very easily when we are moving into the workforce, getting a job, being able to, make some money and buy ourselves stuff. And then we think, ooh, this is fun. Then we get more stuff. Let me get more money. Let me increase my standard of living. Keep climbing that ladder, keep growing. And sometimes when you do that, you leave behind, again, the things that actually matter, your family and your friends and the personal connections in your life. And ultimately, you're going to find yourself discontent. You're going to find yourself not happy. You're surrounded by the most beautiful things in the world. You have all the money in the bank. You're not happy because that stuff doesn't actually matter. And that is what minimalism is about, is realizing what actually matters to you, what actually holds value and adds value to your life. I have driven the same car for 10 years. It is my very first car that I got when I was 17 and just got my license. My grandparents were gracious enough and kind enough to buy this car for me. It is a dinky little 2013 Toyota. It still runs great. I just passed 100,000 miles a couple months ago. After 10 years of having the car, it runs, it plays music. It doesn't even have a backup camera. It doesn't have a backup camera. I have to physically turn my body and look behind me when I'm going in reverse to make sure I'm not hitting anyone or anything. I could have upgraded this car several years ago when I first got my, first big girl job and I was making my own money out of college. I could have said, ooh, this is the right time. Let me upgrade. Let me get something new. Let me get something fancy. I didn't. I don't need to. The car works. It runs. It plays music. It gets me from where I need to go, point A to point B. I don't need more than that. And another thing that this car does is it takes me home to my family. It takes me home to my family about once a month, maybe twice a month. I'm lucky enough to live just a couple hours from my childhood home and from where my parents and my siblings currently live. And I get to go visit them. I can spend the money on the gas. I can take my dinky old little car down to visit them every month. And that is so much more important to me than spending the money to get a new car. If I had an extra car payment, if I had a higher insurance rate, I might be working more. I might be, working a second job or like a side job to pay for this thing in my life that I, didn't actually need, because obviously the car I have right now works just fine. If I was doing that, I maybe wouldn't have the time or the energy to go visit my family, because I don't have a car payment. I'm just paying for the insurance on it, because it doesn't have a lot of fancy bells and whistles that were super expensive, because I have the extra time and money to go visit my family. I do that. And that is, like we just mentioned, fostering these personal and emotional connections. Seeing them regularly fills me with joy and with happiness, and is something that I look forward to. And the time that I spend with them and the amount of fun that we have together, the laughter that is shared when I'm visiting them, all of that is worth so much more to me than a new car. All of that is so much more valuable to me than driving something with the fanciest bells and whistles, than driving something that has a rear view camera. Does that make sense? Yeah, you guys understand? This is, I'm trying to impart to you, again, just the idea that the stuff doesn't matter. Like, when you put it that simply, would I rather have a new car or would I rather see my family every month? Of course, I would rather see my family every month. And again, not everyone has a great relationship with their family. I am lucky enough to have a wonderful relationship with my family. I'm lucky enough to be close enough to see them frequently. But I imagine that you, whoever you are, you have something that means more to you than a new car would. I hope. God, I hope you have something, someone in your life that means more to you than a new car. And if you don't, then maybe this moment can be a bit of a wake-up call for you. Maybe you can take a moment, take a day or two to really think about what is in your life, and does it hold value, and does it hold purpose? Is it stuff that you have? Do you have a lot of stuff in your life? And maybe not a lot of people, maybe not a lot of personal connections. Maybe you do have a lot of personal connections in your life, and you do also have a lot of stuff, and you're really stressed and you're really overwhelmed, and maybe it would help to declutter and decrease some of that stuff and stop worrying so much about the material things and put more focus on your family, on your friends, on the people in your life. I don't know you, but I do hope that you got to know me a little better throughout all of this. I hope that I left you with something to think about. I hope that you learned something new from this little episode here. Thank you so much for taking the time to sit with me in this and to listen to what I have to say. It really means a lot. If you want to support the podcast, you can interact with it in some way, depending on where you're listening. Either leave a review, go answer the Q&A, go leave a comment. You can also come find us on Instagram at SmartyPantsPod. I do a feed post for every single episode, so go comment there. Tell me what you thought about this episode. Tell me about minimalism. Are you inspired to declutter? Let me know. If you're not, if you have a lot of stuff, tell me what means. Just go and tell me something that means a lot to you. I want to hear from you guys. You know now kind of what means a lot to me. I want to know what means a lot to you. I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your day, and I will see you back here next week with another episode. Ciao. All right, guys, time for some shout outs from last week's episode, which was the story of a butt lift, all about one woman's journey to getting a BBL and finding the perfect body. So this first one comes from Spotify. Ricky said, "Shook my head at the mention of the Kardashians, but you're right. They have had a negative influence. Glad you have a better outlook." Thank you, Ricky. They definitely have had a negative influence. I am so disgusted by everything that those women have done and how they have affected the general world at large. It's It's interesting, but it's also pretty sad at the same time. And I think that honestly, they're probably not happy. That's my guess, is that at the end of the day, at the bottom of their heart, they're not happy. And it's all sort of an illusion. All right, from YouTube, SD Bratman commented, thank you for the first comment, SD Bratman, on the YouTube channel. He said, nice to hear you have a healthy outlook on self-image and body positivity and acceptance. I hope Jen's issues don't lead to dire consequences. I hope so as well. It is really sad for anyone to suffer horribly or even die at the cost of their own vanity. And I really hope that she can kind of wake up and have a bit of a different outlook on life as well, something that's a little healthier. And like SD Bratman said, more about body positivity and acceptance. Thank you guys so much for your responses to last week's episode. And for anyone else listening, if you want a shout out at the end of next week's episode, please interact with this current one. Go find us on Instagram. And I want to talk to you guys. I just want to talk to you guys. So hopefully I'll get a chance to do that. And I will see you guys next week.